Mike, do you want to tell people who you are? And
Sure.
as they come in, I'll pull up the, yeah.
More than happy to. Yeah, Mike Jones, and I am with Banner Bank here in the South Puget Sound area, and specialize in kind of all forms of residential lending, with a focus on land loans, construction loans, uh, and a lot of the programs that are more individualized.
I am Beth Leonardo. I have been in the real estate industry since 2005. My husband and I are a team with EXP, and I worked for Zillow for 10 years as a industry relations partner. So I had the top 500 brokerages on the East Coast from Canada to Florida. And I essentially brought agents that hated Zillow or brokerages that hated Zillow over to the dark side to be partners with us.
All banks look at land purchases, lot loans to be a little more inherently risky and carry more risk than your standard residential home purchase for existing housing. And that additional risk is going to require usually a higher down payment, usually a different and shorter loan term, and a higher interest rate. With a lot loan, you're probably going to be looking at a minimum down payment of 25%. Every lender does it different. Every lender has a different way. Any lender, bank that does lot loans has their own program. It's not like when you deal with residential housing where it's all Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all the rules are the same. Everybody does it the same. Every program's available with the same down payments. Every lender does it different. So um, I know some of my competition uh, require 50% down to do a lot loan. So down payment is higher. Loan terms are shorter, which means these aren't buy and hold um, transactions. you know, Again, residential in nature, the assumption is it's somewhere within a reasonable amount of time. Um, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, that land is going to be developed. So the concept of a 30-year lot loan doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and isn't really available as far as a loan term. Most of them that you're going to find in the market are going to be 10, 15, 20-year amortization. And then interest rates are inherently higher for lot loans, again, because of the perceived risk that they present. Um, Harder to determine the actual value of a lot loan because a lot of times there's nothing to really compare it to the actual characteristics of the lot, the location. All of that goes into what a value would be. So based on that, that's why lenders look for a higher down payment and a higher interest rate to cover their, again, perceived risk. For land loans, lot loans, we talk about something called feasibility. And Beth, you can get, I mean, most offers, most contracts for land purchases will include some kind of feasibility contingency or condition in them. Feasibility basically is a study that's conducted to tell you whether you can do what you want to do with that land. Can you build what you want to build on that property? Will the property accommodate it? Is it zoned properly for what you want to do? Wetlands. You've got an
Huge
acre lot.
one.
You've got an acre lot, but you can only build on like a very small portion of it because a certain percentage of it is wetlands that you can't build. So while you're looking at an acre, you may only have, a smaller portion of that to build. Floodplain is the
Just
property.
really quickly on
No, yeah, go ahead.
that part. So if you find a piece of property that you think is going to work, it's important for us to, before you start looking at building, is for us to put an offer, or your agent put an offer and get a feasibility study done so that you know what you're looking at and what you can do on that property, because it could be a quarter acre where there's only 500 feet of usable land on that property, because it butts up to somebody else's wetland. And so that's kind of my interjection there on the feasibility part of
So
it.
that's one of the key things that lenders look at is, can you build? Is the lot buildable? And it's critical to know that you can do what you want to do. And it sits there just like a home inspection does, where and correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but it's simply a contingency in the contract that if you do a feasibility study and you can't do, or the land won't support, or isn't available to do it to, what's planned on it, then that's just like a home inspection as far as canceling the contract and go and find some place that you can do it.
Exactly. So typically what I do, and my husband, is we will set you up on some sort of a search. I'm sure Aaron does this too as an agent. When you have people looking for things, you continue to send them additional properties, because the feasibility may not work, the inspection may not work, and something that was much better might come along while you're in that feasibility stage. And it's important to have that study in there. So go ahead, Shachi.
Yeah, hi. I don't know if you're going to cover this later, but I have a couple of questions. So, one thing I was told that when you're doing the feasibility studies, it takes longer for that to get completed. And
Mhm.
the second part of that feasibility is that the money that you put in for as fees to get these studies done is something that you are not going to get back if the land is not usable. Is that right?
That's Beth, you can, but yes, that
Money
and
that you pay for the feasibility, you don't get back,
right, it's like a
but
home
the
inspection,
earnest money that you put down, you do get back.
right?
Got
So a feasibility study can start at like 1,200. It can go, I mean, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're doing a land development, it
Mhm.
could be much more than that.
Got it. And
And
this
and
second,
as far as the time goes that you're talking about, a lot of that I think depends on the characteristics of the lot that you're looking to purchase.
Mhm.
I had one up in Preston that was on the river. Weren't sure if it was in a floodplain or not, or again, where we could build, where we couldn't build. And because of a few factors with the transaction, That offer actually had a 6-month feasibility study time frame built into it, where that transaction was going to be 6 months in the doing, maybe not that long, but that's what they put in the offer to give them enough time to do all the studies that they needed to do and do all the and make sure everything. So yes, it could take longer than like a home inspection do, where you call somebody, they come out next week and they have the report done for you 2 days later.
Right,
These studies are much longer and much more detailed than that.
Got it. And this second question was that the feasibility works similar to home inspection, I'm guessing. So if it comes back negative, then you're not really expected to go through the purchase. Is that correct?
Yes,
Right.
that is
Go ahead.
correct.
Go ahead, Beth.
So, yeah, so the way that we write them in, and this is going to be, I think, a common practice for writing in a feasibility is the whole time that I am talking with somebody about a piece of land that they have. Before I'm even looking at how long the feasibility study is, I am asking them what permits have been filed already, what zoning it is, if they have information about surrounding lots that have been developed, if there's any moving water that's around the property, like it could have a little creek bed that's dry in the summer, but in the wintertime, it's not going to be dry, right? So Chris and I try to do as much homework on our end before we're even going to take you there and say, this is probably a good property for you, just because we don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste our time. If that property is $20,000 on the Redmond Ridge, I am going to tell you 99% that the only
Right.
thing you're going to be able to park on that is a car. And
Yes.
then the neighbors on Redmond Ridge are going to tell you to get that car moved off the street, even though you own the land that their driveways are on, right? So there is a lot to the feasibility, and that could be something that you and I, or you and Chris, talk about as you go along the process here, because depending on what you're looking for, there is a lot of data that you can pull up online and a lot of research that we can do on our own before you even hire somebody to come in and do a feasibility study. But we do have a guy that does feasibility, and we also have someone that does wetland restoration. So if you find a lot that is 70% usable, but part of where you want to use it is considered wetland, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't buy that piece of property and build on it. It just means that the county may require you to take whatever that 20 feet of driveway that is where you're going to access the lot.
Mhm.
They may require you to do a little bit of earth moving and drainage systems to put that 20% in a different area of the lot. So it doesn't mean that you can't buy it. It just means that it might take a little bit of work to kind of move things around. And as we all know, living in the Puget Sound area, everything in Puget Sound is either on a hill or on
Right.
wetlands. So or damp land. So there's very few lots that don't need any work at all and any earth moving to make them buildable and the whole lot usable, if that
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Got it. Yeah. I'm working with Chris right now on a property in Black Diamond. So he has sent me a lot of information I have to go through. So he just suggested this webinar is better
Fun.
when you asking me a lot of questions on email. So
Yeah. And even if you're on here, you're listening to the playback, like I said at the beginning, like we aren't looking to have you be um our clients unless you already are working with us. But we certainly, as we're learning these things and we're working with Mike and we're doing these classes, like we are more than happy to answer questions for anybody about anything, like whether you're our client or not, it's fine. Education is everything. And the more people that are educated about these types of things, the less of a rut our market stays in, where people are just afraid to even broach the topic of building because it's just too scary.
I
Right,
agree. I agree.
right.
Thank you so much.
And before I jump on to the next one, your question, which started out with, it was something that you had heard or something that you had run across. That's where, that's where people like Beth, that's where people like myself, even if we're not in the middle of doing a transaction or not, or a loan or whatever, but you hear something and you don't know, just pick up the phone, give us a call. We'll answer the question for you so that you're not working with partial information or not having to say, well, I think this is what
Exactly.
there's lots of there's lots of resources available.
Yeah, it's a lot of I guess kind of thing. I'd
Yeah,
rather
and
know
we
than
want
this.
we want to get rid of as much of that as possible and
Got
think.
it.
So that's kind of what's different about lot loans. What's the same about these loans, as opposed to buying just buying a house that's already there. The things that are the same are you're going to go through the same process with all lenders when it comes to purchasing a lot or land. You're going to have a standard residential loan application, income, credit, and assets. You're going to have a list of documentation to verify that income, credit, and assets, credit reports, bank statements, income documentation. All of those are going to be required, just like a regular purchase of a home. There will be an appraisal done of the property. It's a little different type of appraisal because it talks more about what we're talking about, where the appraiser is not only looking at the value of the property and making sure that what we're loaning on, what you're paying for, is reasonable for what you're purchasing. But it's also going to talk and address the the buildable aspects of the property. Is the lot buildable? That they do some of their own research too. So it's not the same as a residential purchase appraisal, but it does have comparable sales in it, and it does have some of the things that we've talked about. And then the standard title policies and escrow closing is the same on a residential lot loan as it is if you were buying, a regular stick-built home. So those things, are similar to what you would go through purchasing a regular residential loan.
And can you go back just for 1 second?
Sure, I can.
I think, and maybe you can address this, but when you are buying a house, you're going to feel like you're being asked for everything, including your blood type. Like literally, there's a letter of recommendation, but that's about like the only thing they don't ask for, right? Because
Yeah.
they need to make sure that we don't have a 2008 happen again, where we're lending and people are buying homes that they can't afford, or that, there's some defect in the process. So when you get to the point where you're putting an offer on a piece of land or on a home, you need to be preparing now with your income verification, making sure you have your bank statements, making sure any lump sums of money that come into your account are accounted for, any investments, all of those things. So keeping really great records will help the building process move at a faster rate once you get past that feasibility stage, where then Mike's team comes in and goes to work and they start checking utilities and they start, all of the things that they are going to do on their side to make sure that they're making a good investment. So being prepared up front and having your 2 years of employment, verifiable, all of those types of things are super important, because nobody wants to wait 2 years to pay rent and try to build a house. And if you can shorten that time frame up by 6 months or 8 months, it really is worth the time up front to invest in keeping good records for yourself moving through this process.
Yeah. You're getting your individual situation is being considered when we go through all of this, all of this process. So it's not, it's not quite as cold as impersonal as some lending can get to be. And Beth, I think you're right. We could probably do another one of these and just go through construction loans in details and talk about how they work, how the draws work, and how they get repaid, what permanent financing looks like, what float downs are, and all those type of things that people would like to know.
Yeah, and so this is being recorded, so it's going to go out to everybody that's in the sphere that I have that's looking at this topic. So I'm gonna forward this out individually in an email. And if you have other questions that you want to ask that you may think of later on down the road, or after you review the slides again, I'm going to send it to myself and Mike, and then you can just reply all, and then it'll just go to Mike and I. Everybody else will be on a blind copy, so they won't see what your questions are. And then I'm also going to send out a little survey about, what you enjoyed about this, what you didn't feel like was beneficial or whatever, and kind of tailor the next one towards that and build off this one. So we appreciate everybody being here.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, and then the end for me, which is it doesn't have to be about a transaction that you're ready to do. It doesn't have to be always about a loan or something that's happening tomorrow. 95% of what I do is informational and educational in nature. So if you have any questions at all, phone, text, email, send them to me. I'll get right back to you. You won't receive a whole bunch of things from the bank as far as advertising. Just don't hesitate to ask those questions that right now you're having to answer with I think, I guess, or maybe. Okay, let's get you the answers that you need so that you can make the decisions with as much information as possible.
Yeah. And if you get an email from me, it's actually from me. It's not from a CRM tool. So it's actually coming from me. I took the time to type it out. So if you want to block me, that's okay. That's fine. But I'm still going to try to keep in touch with everybody, even if it's, not something that, you're into right now. 5 years down the road, think of us if you're in that place again.
Yep. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all you guys and for taking the time to sit with us.
Thanks for recording this, Mike.
Yep. And I'll get that to you so you can get it out.
Right. Sounds great. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Mike
Bye.
and Beth. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, Joe.